Deep down up in this jungle, I seen so many fumble. I seen them lose their faith. I seen them fade away. I seen some come and go. Just know I'm here to stay. I pray to the Father, the Daddy make a way. Bring on that line when they bustin' into it. Gotta say a little bigger, so we tired of losing. New Torah movement, new Torah movement. Bring in that war machine, that be their heart with the tanks on the ground. And the middle of the problem. New Torah movement, new Torah movement. Very many Frenches, no gang homie. Told this tour might bang holding this for run, girl, when the doctors show. Better stay in your lane, homie. I do this for you, carry the pain on me. Get on that block with the stains on me. Pray shot, never would change on me. Pray the blessings that they would just rain on me. Different the starting fellas, different the ones that losing their faith cause they pray every day and they feel like nothing happening. You know that we need you, we praying, we crying, calling, trying to read. They say them tanks be moving around like them eagles, vultures with them scriptures eat you. Get off my back, that's the devil. Get on my level, it's heavy. I'm not reaching out of breath. I'm a prophet, not seven. Trying to feature this mess, but I feel like nobody won't tell them I said it. Deep down up in this jungle, I seen so many fumble. I seen them lose their faith. I seen them fade away. I seen some come and go. Just know I'm here to stay. I pray to the Father, the Daddy make a way. Bring on that line when they bustin' into it. Gotta say a little bigger, so we tired of losing. New Torah movement, new Torah movement. Bring in that war machine, that be their heart with the tanks on the ground. And the middle of the problem. New Torah movement, new Torah movement. Born in this really sin, take it for steps, it feel like you feel it then. Heart full of joy, you just can't tell it then. Tanks on our gun, no we won't ready. Cut up with scriptures and go Freddy. Got that milk for the neighbors, let's go get this cake, do you know better? I see what passion hit in my blood, it pump through my veins. There ain't no acting, that I got close and false doctors. Up in the casket, rather down if you ask it. Trying to get away from all the pain, all the hate, from all the lanes and all the fake. Cut the grass, you see the snakes. Pick up the phone, I'm calling on yeah, I am the son, I'm calling on Pops. I never run for nobody, I never run for no devil. Stay off my back, you know better. Deep down up in this jungle, I seen so many fumble. I seen them lose their faith, I seen them fade away. I seen some come and go, just know I'm here to stay. I pray to the Father, the Daddy make a way. Bring on that line when they bustin' into it. Gotta say a little bigger, so we tired of losing. New Torah movement, new Torah movement. Bring in that war machine, that be their heart with the tanks on the ground. And the middle of the problem. New Torah movement, new Torah movement.
Shalom, family, shalom. Peace and blessings. Giving all praise to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. to Yeshua. A rabbi, teacher, showed us how to walk the Torah out circumspectly to all the prophets and teachers of Israel. Peace and blessings, family. Hit that like button as you come in the building. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Shalom, Sister Cassandra. Shalom, shalom, family. Shalata Yalo. For the non. Dratio, peace to you, brother. Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. My sister Cassandra, peace and blessings to you, sis. Appreciate you for being in the building. Shalom, Yah ben Yah. Peace and blessings. Y'all like, share, and subscribe, man. Let someone know we're on the air. Let them know that we are live. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of what we started on yesterday. I received a lot of positive feedback. People talking about that, you know, a lot of people learned that, you know, this was even out here, this type of rhetoric. Not even really familiar with Billy Carson and his rhetoric and his anti-Bible rants. And a lot of people had many questions answered to a lot of things that he had been espousing, or he is currently espousing, right? And then going through the information we did on yesterday, it's made evident as to why he's embarked on these so-called biblical rants or anti-biblical rhetoric, right? We talked about the Luciferian culture, philosophy that a lot of his rhetoric is based in. We went into Madame Blavatsky, right? We went into, talked about Aleister Crowley, all of these occult leaders, right? That we went in and drew out a lot of the information that he's even sharing, right? And promoting to the people. And like I said, oftentimes, you know, I hear a lot of things from a lot of people, but I don't really go in on it to the degree because it's just so much foolishness out here. But I draw the line when they turn their attention and their aim, right, against the Bible, right, against what thus saith Yah, right, calling good evil and evil good, right? And so as children of Israel, children of the Most High Yah, if you're a believer in the book in its totality, right, this rhetoric is one that is steeped in fallacy, mythology, right? Almost to the point of someone who's trying to scam someone. We talked about how it tries to keep you in a lower state of consciousness, right? And so we sort of set it up the background for this conversation. If you missed that on yesterday, go back. It's part one, same title, right? But it's part one. This is part two. We're going to do today. We're going to get into quite a bit more information and talk about what this forbidden knowledge is, right? And it is, for many, answers to the questions that they have, but these questions are very deceptive. They're not clear, right? In regards to where the information is taken from, right? And how to vet this information. A lot of it is really just things that are made up and concocted, right? And it really carries no weight and no basis in true faith, right? It really is. It claims to not be a religion, but it's definitely presented as a religion. It has a faith-based system based on a deity, a thought, or person or someone who's sharing this quote-unquote high-level consciousness or knowledge. And we have to be very careful again. Once we begin to hear these things in the communities, that we don't necessarily turn a blind eye to these things, but we make sure that we address it. In some things we have to attack head on. And I believe and I feel this is one of those things that we definitely have to address and attack head on. And I'm not going to beleaguer the time. I am going to share my screen. We're going to get into this information. We're going to begin to share. We're going to be going into a little bit more about Freemasonry and how Freemasonry connects to everything we talked about yesterday. We touched on it briefly on yesterday. We're going to show you some things concerning Freemasonry that you may not have been aware of. We talked about yesterday Billy Carson and how the deity of Thoth, one of the gods, or sometimes called the king of the netherworld, of the underworld, the king of the dead, how these things actually connect to what he's espousing to be a higher level of consciousness, but it's actually a mindset, an idea, an ideology of death. It's really in the reverse. It's about descension, descending, and not ascension and ascending, right? There's no higher or no super quantum conscious understanding that he attempts to espouse. And what this is nothing more than a gumbo of failed doctrines and failed occultism, failed witchcraft, right? Failed philosophies, philosophical ideas that carry no weight. But after a while, especially in certain communities, once something is allowed to continue, right, without putting a into it or snipping it in the bud immediately, they begin to grow roots. They begin to grow branches and leaves, and they produce fruit, strange fruit, right? And people began to partake of this strange fruit, and they become deceived. They become deluded, right, with the messages of these people who claim to be on a higher level of consciousness, right? Who hold a knowledge, a forbidden knowledge, right? that only they in themselves have obtained, and the rest of us, right, are simply zombies, or we're mental zombies. We're consciously dead, right? We are trapped in the matrix of the Bible, right? And that really the God of the Bible is really the evil one, right? And Lucifer is really the good one. The serpent in the garden is the one that was trying to really enlighten Eve and Adam. And that's really was the benevolent God, the good God, right? The serpent was the good God, or some call the Logos, right? The God, because Logos or wisdom, right, of the serpent, right? So some call that as the wisdom or the Logos, and that's why you often hear people try to espouse that Yeshua was the actual serpent in the garden, because the term Logos is attached to the wisdom of this serpent in the garden. And a lot of these texts, especially the Emerald Tablet text that we went into yesterday, right? The plurals, right? And so people are deceived by these notions. And we're going to continue with this information because I want to show you guys how a lot of this stuff still connects, right? And it's it's preposterous at best. And so we're just going to get into a little bit of this information. I'm not going to prolong the time. Just going to get right into the lesson. So again, all praises to the Most High. Thank you for being in the building today. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you being back in the building with us today. Appreciate your knowledge that you shared. Again, this is a platform. This is a chat, a platform, a channel that we attempt to teach and share information in the chat, right? No one espouses to have all of the answers, right? No one should claim to have all of the answers, but what we can do is share what we have, right? And so your comments are welcome as long as they're respectful comments. Comments are welcomed in the chat. Whatever knowledge base you have, wherever you are in your walk, in your journey, please share. It may help someone else in their walk. We're all here as a community. We're all here as a family. That's the environment we like to cultivate here. But we respect everyone. We keep it very respectful on this platform and in this chat room. So please feel free to share. We can all learn something from one another, right? And so let's continue to do that. Peace and blessings to you, family. Dr. Sharp, glad you're in the building, brother. I appreciate you. Appreciate your wisdom and knowledge as well. Everyone that you see in this chat room that comes in this chat has some knowledge. They have some life experience that they can share, right? And so we understand and we know everything is not for everybody, and that's perfectly okay. But we've all been through some things that can help our brothers or help our sisters, right? And so we respectfully appreciate that and respectfully appreciate you sharing with us. So this is what we're going to start out with. Again, if you didn't see part one of this lesson on yesterday, very powerful lesson. My Hawk say he in the building with his shoes. Appreciate you, Hawk. So again, a very powerful lesson on yesterday, really going into this, examining Billy Carson, breaking down his information, showing everything that we possibly can, talking about his book, right? And I'll even plug his book, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, right? Just so sometimes we can see where people are actually attempting to teach us in a way that is simply infectious. And the sister said right here, the forbidden knowledge infected with a deadly spiritual disease. Hallelujah. Exactly. We went through this on yesterday. We went through this on yesterday, and we're going to continue to show this, right? And I'm not here to lay ad hominems towards the brother, because I've reached out to them to have a one-on-one live conversation with them. But I'm going off what the information that he's already espoused, right? Coming directly from his mouth. So this is not hearsay. We're talking about things he's put out in his videos. So this is the information that we're challenging, right? None of this hearsay, he said, she said. We're actually dealing with the information that he's put out, and how in his forbidden rants, right? In his attacks against the scriptures, why that is, and why do we see this, right? Is there any truth to what he's saying, right? And so, and I tell people all the time, a half truth is still a lie, right? Anytime you got to remix the truth, trust me, it's at that point, it's a lie, right? And so we're going to get into this information. Let me share my screen. Like I said, go back yesterday, look and check out part 1, right? Today we start in part 2. Let me make that a little bit bigger for the family to see, it. Again, family, hit that like button, like, share, and subscribe. Let us know that you are in the building, as my ox said, as Ashraf said, in the building with his shoes off. Absolutely. So definitely, let's get into this information. Again, as we see here, this is where we ended yesterday, right? And how he talks about the god Thoth, how he connects Thoth in the Atlanteans. This is real stuff that he's teaching, right? Not to be fabrications, but to be real things. That Enki and El were the actual, and Anu were the actual gods of the Bible. This is the Trinity of the Bible: Anu, Enki, and Elil. And their squabbles over the higher elevated conscience of mankind. One wants to elevate the conscience of mankind, I believe Enki, and then Elil wanted to subjugate man, keep him in a lower state, only to be a servant. And they went back and forth, apparently. In this particular mythos, a lot of this he's drawn from the understanding of the Anunnaki mythos that we hear. We went through how none of it's ever been substantiated, can't be substantiated, right? And so we're going to continue to go through this. And so we got to a place where we began to show and talk about the planet Marduk, or Nibiru, right? Which is the place where he claims that the Anunnaki, and not just he claims that, but this has been claimed for quite a few years, that the Anunnaki descend or once lived in this planetary, this black planet, this dark planet called Nibiru, somewhere hidden in our solar system. And for thousands of years, they've been traveling back and forth. They were known here on Earth as the Atlanteans, right? And that type of stuff. So, but they're teaching this is truth. And that's the issue that I have, while attacking the scripture. And the reason why I thought about it last night, one of the reasons it's evident why they attack the scripture so much is because they have to draw people away in order to sell them this garbage, right? So it's really, to me, when you really look at it, it's really a money grab. It's really a money grab, right? And if they feel that they can get a quarter of Israelites or quote unquote Christians or whatever to turn away from the understanding of the books of the Bible and what thus saith the Most High in the Bible, for Israelites to turn away from the law, statutes, and commandments and begin to follow this nonsense because you're on a search for a higher level of consciousness, not so that you can connect and have a better relationship with the Most High, but so that you can say, listen, I have this knowledge that you don't have, right? That your pride and ego pushes a lot of people, a lot of teachers in Israel, a lot of these pastors, we already know that Christian pastors, a lot of their ego is simply just to say, I know more than you, so pay me, right? When it comes to the scriptures, right? And it's a scam. It's a scam and a sham, right? And so what we need to do is begin to really vet this information that's out here, right? You see this guy, Billy Carson, everywhere. I came across some information, that I felt like I didn't have to present in this particular presentation, right? About allegations of being of actually being a scam artist and changed his name and going on this type of stuff, because the information that's out here, many people are following it and they are aware of that information. But you still have many people following. Why? Because we have an innate, and the Most High has placed that in us. We have an innate thirst and hunger to search for wisdom, to seek the Most High, right? And oftentimes it's not cultivated, it's ignored, right? It's replaced with some other type of wayward doctrine, right? That takes our focus off seeking the Most High Yahweh, into seeking something even within ourselves, right? Humanism, making ourselves God, right? We're the supreme beings of the universe, right? Humanism, right? Transhumanism, there's something outside of ourselves, but not yet the God of the Bible, not yet Yahweh, not yet the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but it's something above and beyond that idea or understanding or ideology that they seek in their thirst for knowledge and wisdom and understanding, that they don't even realize that it's what the Most High put in them, so that what he could have relationship with them, right? And that's all the Most High seeks. He seeks a relationship, the creator with the creation, right? And so oftentimes people are easily beset. They're easily fooled and taken away because something sounds good. And I played some videos of Brother Carson talking about how he doesn't have to pray for anything. He just speaks it into existence. He doesn't have to believe in God for anything. He just speaks it into existence, all based on his will, right? All of that stuff to people, to the untrained ear, sounds good. But as you continue to listen to him and talk to him, you began to hear the witchcraft and the wizardry that goes into what he's saying.
I can get credit card information and the PayPal account on this thing, so it doesn't know what I'm talking about.
And so you can actually see the rhetoric that he begins to talk about. You want my card?
Yeah, we can try that first.
And so these are the things that we have to be very careful of, right? So let's get into this information, right? Let's listen to what he says. We're going to read this. We're going to break this stuff down just a little bit. And I want to get to this, right? The myth of Marduk planet in Nibiru, right? He often espouses it, but let's look at what this says, right? Let's go to this link, right? Because I want people to understand where we are with this, right? It's talking about the myth of Marduk planet in Nibiru, right? Separating fact from fiction. Now let's read a little bit here, right? It says, in recent years, some conspiracy theories, right? And I'm going to get into that because there's a whole psychosis behind those people that they found scientifically that follow conspiracy theories. There's a pattern of psychosis among those people, right? that everything is conspiratorial, right? Now, listen, let's not be blind to the things of the world, right? We know that the government has done some underhanded things and they continue to do so, right? There are things that they're actually they've conspired to do. They've hid from the public, right? We know the Tuskegee experiment, giving syphilis to black men, right? Injecting them, inoculating them with sexually transmitted disease to see the effects on these, how the effects, it works on the mind and the nervous system and the body to weaponize syphilis, right? And they unknowingly, right? Unknowingly recruited black men to experiment on, right? We know these things occur, right? We know that there's evidence of they're using LSD for mind control programs. These things are documented in facts, right? We understand what these things are, and that the government is actually involved in these things, right? So we know that, right? So when I talk about conspiracy theories, those aren't conspiracy theories. Those are things in government programs, right, that they're actually involved in, right? We know the FBI and COINTELPRO, those are not conspiracy theories. These are things that the government was engaged in, right? So what we're talking about here is things that are literally made up, right? Literally created out of thin air, right? So we talk about in recent years, some conspiracy theories, as a matter of fact, I know we may have some in the chat. I don't mean to offend you, but y'all gonna have to answer to me. Y'all gonna have to ask India, who was just up in space, up at the moon a couple of days ago. The fourth country to land a shuttle on the moon. This is 2023. They couldn't Photoshop that. They didn't fake that. In the pictures of the spherical Earth that they showed, right? That their space shuttle, their spacecraft, which orbited the moon, actually took pictures of. Yeah. So all you flat earthers, hey, I'm sorry, y'all gonna have to move on to something else. Get your potatoes and your batteries and your wires together and go on to the next science project, because this flat earth one ain't it. That's over, right? That's over. Thanks to the Indian government. Thanks to the Indian government. That's over, right? Well, let's get into it. It says in recent years, some conspiracy theories have emerged claiming the existence of a planet called Marduk, right? Also known as Nibiru, which is said to pose a threat to Earth. According to these theories, Marduk is a brown dwarf star or a large planet that
I did the PayPal again and it works.
Some even suggest that Marduk is home to an advanced civilization that is responsible for the creation of humanity. They're talking about the Anunnaki, right? However, these claims have not been supported by scientific evidence, Billy Carson, but this is what he espouses to be the truth. He goes around city to city, podcast to podcast, teaching this, right? And so we have to understand when we have things like this that are being espoused, especially in our community among our people, right? And then they use this information and espouse it as truth, but they'll tell you when you open the Bible, it's all lies and it does nothing but contradict itself. We heard Brother Carson say that out of his own mouth on yesterday in the video. And I may play some of that video again today, right? That it's all lies. The Bible is all lies. That the God of the Bible is actually evil, right? He's actually wicked. And as I began to do even more research on a lot of his rhetoric and a lot of the things that he says, I hear this a lot on the HOK platform. I hear this a lot in that community and in that circle, And I think what we found is a lot of Billy Carsonites. We got a lot of Billy Carsonites, and they've been hiding where they've been extrapolating this information from, but we're putting it on Front Street today. We started yesterday, but we put it on Front Street, putting it back on Front Street today. Because a lot of the rhetoric that they espouse, right, in this house, in that quote unquote house of consciousness, unconscious community, a lot of it is almost word for word what this wizard here is talking about, right? This whole ancient Kemet flavoring to it, right? This whole, the God of the Bible is actually evil. He's actually the wicked one. The snake in the garden was actually Yeshua, because they referred to the snake of the garden in these accounts as the Logos. And Philo uses the term Logos in the book John, in John 1:1. When we talk about Logos, he uses it in terms of wisdom, right? Not understanding that John 1:1 has nothing to do, is not talking about Yeshua, but it's talking about the thought of the mind of Yahweh, right? It's the wisdom of the Most High. He says, in the beginning was the word, or Logos, or the wisdom. In the beginning was the wisdom, right? In the wisdom was the word, and the wisdom was with the word, right? Right? The wisdom was with the Most High, and the wisdom was the Most High. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about Logos as in sense of an individual person, or a person by the name of Yeshua. It's not talking about Yeshua there in John 1:1. People have to understand that, right? So we have to also understand, somebody said the house of crying, incognito, hallelujah, absolutely, right? We hear this stuff. This is the same stuff Brother Polite was spewing, right? And this is all I see here is Polite times 10, right? Without the sexual allegations, right? But there are allegations of scamming, right? If y'all want to look up Billy Carson in Broward County, right? You got aliases all over the place, right? Bug shots and all over the place dealing with these things. Now, I'm not saying people can't change their ways, so that's not what I'm focusing on here. But what I'm saying is we need to know and understand who's disseminating this information. I did a teaching on this channel a while back talking about disinformation cell groups. Disinformation cell groups. A lot of these channels are like information terrorists, disinformation terrorists. It is their job to espouse and spew disinformation. They know it's a lie. They know it's a fake. They know it's conspiracy theories. They know it's made up. They know it's not substantiated scientifically. A lot of the things that they say and talk about is not substantiated in the scriptures. A lot of the claims that they make, right, about the scriptures, right, can't be substantiated. It's all nonsense and hearsay, right? All nonsense and hearsay. So we have to be very careful about these disinformation cell groups, right? Who love putting out information to keep the people confused. And that is nothing but that only comes out of the consciousness of Hashatan. It says, for the Most High is not the author of confusion. Right? So let's get into it. It says many scientists and astronomers believe that the idea of a planet like Marduk or Nibiru is nothing more than a myth. They argue there is no evidence to suggest that such a planet exists or that it poses a threat to Earth. Moreover, they point out that these claims are conspiracy theories with no scientific basis. The science of astronomy has a very good understanding of the orbits and movements of the planets in the solar system. If the orbit of any planet in the solar system were to be disrupted, it would cause changes in the orbits of the other planets, Therefore, if a planet were to enter or leave the solar system, there would be a noticeable change in the orbits of all the planets. However, no such change has been observed. As a result, claims about Marduk planet and Nibiru have not been scientifically substantiated. Billy Carson. These claims are believed to be conspiracy theories with no scientific basis. The science of astronomy has a very good understanding of orbits and movement of planets in the solar system and insists that there is no such threat. However, the popularity and widespread belief in these claims have caused some people to worry and to fear and to even fall astray, even leave the faith. Therefore, scientists not only refute such claims, but also make efforts to calm people's concerns. Listen, people, most of the claims about Marduk planet and Nibiru were made by some astronomers when in the 1970s and 1980s. 1970s and 1980s. All of this X planet and Nibiru and all of this stuff comes about, right? Watch this. A lot of the claims that they make today. These astronomers claim that some irregularities in the orbits of Uranus and Neptune indicated the existence of these planets. However, these irregularities were later explained through more precise observations and computer simulations. The irregularities in the orbits of Uranus and Neptune were found to be caused by gravitational effects. You got folks out here now who will argue all day on all night long about whether or not gravity is a real thing. Yeah, they will. Gravitational effects of Jupiter and Saturn when accurate calculations were made. Furthermore, there is no evidence of the existence of a planet called Nibiru. The source of these claims is a mythical planet called Nibiru in the Mesopotamian mythology. Some people believe that this mythical planet is real and is approaching Earth. However, there is no scientific basis for this claim. But Billy Carson will tell you different. Nevertheless, some people continue to believe in such claims. These individuals share videos and pictures on the internet, social media, video sharing websites claiming that Nibiru is approaching Earth. However, the vast majority of these videos and pictures are fake and manipulated. In conclusion, claims about Marduk planet Nibiru have no scientific basis. The popularity of these claims has caused some people to worry and fear. However, current scientific data from astronomy and science do not support the existence of such a threat. Therefore, efforts must be made to inform people based on the scientific facts and calm their concerns. Right? And so these are the things that we have to be aware of. When we begin to constantly look at and listen to these disinformation cell groups, like Billy Carson himself, right? Like the pseudos on the HOK, those who call themselves the God killers, right? These things are often misconstrued. They can't substantiate any of it, right? So let's continue, right? Again, we're going to talk about Thoth and satanic cult worship. This is what Billy Carson espouses. Now, he won't come out and tell you that it's satanic, but every video he's going to tell you about the wisdom, the great wisdom of Thoth. He's nothing more than the Kemetic wizard. And we've seen a lot of these pop their heads up, especially around this, as my brother in the chat, Incognito says, the House of Crimes. You know? But watch this, right? And it's unfortunate because there is some rich history to be respected about ancient Kemet. But when you have people who come and take it and twist it and manipulate it to confuse people and to delude people, right? And to have you thinking that these are deities or deities to be worshipped, right? And they're not what they say that they are, right? Simply to attack the Bible or the biblical narrative, then now there's issues that we must address, right? And we have to call this stuff out. Let's continue. I want to get into some of this stuff. Thoth in modern Satanism, right? Thoth is even mentioned in the Satanic Bible. On page 144 of the Satanic Bible, it gives up a passage to recite to invoke demons from the pit of hell to come forth and manifest desires in life. These infernal spirits are literal beings that theistic Satanists evoke through ritual, prayer, and magic. Now, that's a very interesting term, theistic Satanists. This is why Billy Carson won't say that he's an atheist. He's not an atheist because he has a God he believes in. It's not the God of the Bible. It's this Satanism, this satanic one, right? And that list on page 146 is Thoth, the Egyptian god of magic. Magic is something practiced by Satanists, sometimes involving blood rituals and the summoning of demons, such as Thoth himself. They even likened the Egyptian or Kemetic god Set to Satan and worship him as such. Satanist and the founder of the school Theosophy, and we talked about her on yesterday, Helena Blavatsky, sums up Thoth as follows. She says, Hermes, the god of wisdom, called also Thoth, Tet, Set, and Setan, right? Or Satan, right? And that he was, furthermore, when viewed under his bad aspect, Typhon, right? Which is also equated to a demon of the storm or a water demon. And I'm going to show you some correlations to these water demons as well. Typhon, the Egyptian Satan, who was also Set, right? This is Helena Petrovna Blavatsky in her work called Isis Unveiled, Volume 1, Science, New York Trolls Printing and Bookbinding, 1877, page 554. Thoth is revered as a demon, is in modern Satanism, right? Let's look at Billy Carson and the Aleister Crowley connection, right? These guys are only really mimicking this gentleman right here, Aleister Crowley. And if you're not familiar with Aleister Crowley, he's clearly a European, but claims he had an experience in ancient Kemet in Egypt while visiting in Egypt, that his spirit spoke out to him, which he believed was the gods, more specifically the god Thoth, and he began to go on this journey of occultism, right, that many hold true to today. And all you see in Billy Carson's rhetoric, the scripture says there's nothing new under the sun. You see this replay of Aleister Crowley. You see this actual reiteration, right, of Aleister Crowley, right? The same spirit that was in Aleister Crowley, right, resides and abides in some of these people, right? The brother on yesterday, I believe it was, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to get it wrong. Oh, Aliyah, the brother that came on in the chat yesterday. Shout out to him. I haven't seen him in the chat yet, but shout out to him as well. Shout out to you, Sister Professor Lovely Lady. Ancient Scribe, I appreciate you, brother, for being in the building today. We can almost see the demonic hole on the consciousness. If you look in the eyes of Aleister Crowley here, even on this film, even on this photograph of him, dressed in ancient Egyptian garb, looking like what's our brother? with the lock over there on HOK. That's what I'm telling you. All this is a replay of all the same stuff, man. It's all occultism. It's all occultism being replayed over and over and over and over again. Right? Shaka Amos, that's his name. Right? This guy and Shaka Amos, they're dressing at the same thrift store. Y'all understand what I'm saying? So this stuff is crazy, man. Look at it. And look at his eyes. If y'all can see it up close, look at his eyes. This is the same way when we're showing the video of Billy Carson himself, they have that same dead blank stare, right? As if their consciousness is not is being controlled by another force, right? So let's get into Aleister Crowley, Thoth, and magic, right? Someone obsessed with Egyptian magic was 33rd degree Freemason and Satanist Aleister Crowley. And if you understand anything, we went over this a little bit on yesterday. I'm going to get into a little bit more of this Egyptian Freemasonry, right? This 33rd degree, this wizardry, right? That they created. We're going to get into that a little bit in this lesson, right? Billy Carson talks often about the 33rd degree, right? Talks about how you need 33 degrees. 30. You have to reach 33. I forgot how you call it, what term that he used in order to break the barriers of the orbit to enter into space, right? You have to be at 30. I think you have to be at some speed that's calculated at 33. At 33, right? You can't be 31, can't be 32, it has to be 33, right? In order to enter this orbit. And when you enter this orbit, he talks about how NASA has discovered these X points. He called them X points. And he basically says, oh, that these are like wormholes or jump spaces, right? If you hit one of these X points, it'll shoot you straight to the moon. Or if you hit one of these X points, it'll shoot you straight to the sun, right? These are the things that he's espousing, right? Absolutely. Sister Cassandra, 33 equals 6 equals upside down 9. Absolutely. This is exactly the wizardry and the magic that they're using, right? And so Satanist Aleister Crowley, he referred to himself as the beast, 666. And these are the heroes of guys like Billy Carson and all those other cats, right? He says, I was not content to just believe in Satan. Can you imagine that? He says he was not content just to believe in Hashatan. What a statement. What a statement. He said, I wanted to be his chief of staff. How wicked is that? How wicked is that? Right? Then he goes on to say, as he was a famous occultist and magician who was heavily influenced by Thoth and Egyptian mythology. He openly admitted blood sacrifice to demons and said for nearly all purposes relating to magic, human sacrifice is the best. And he says this in chapter 12 of the Bloody Sacrifice and Matters Cognate by Aleister Crowley. He actually says this. They talk about blood sacrifice, right? Is the highest form of worship that they could give to this Hashatan or to this Thoth, right? And you'll see a lot of these same motifs heavily embedded in Freemasonry, heavily embedded in in almost 95% of the rhetoric that you hear coming from Billy Carson. Nothing more than a wizard. Again, Harry Potter at his finest, right? Satanist and the founder of the School of Theosophy, Helen M. Blavatsky, sums up Thoth. Let's see, we went over that one. Let's go back. It says Aleister Crowley, he was contacted by a supernatural being called Awis, right? While in Egypt, that taught him, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. I've even heard some brothers, I've heard a lot of brothers say this: do as thy will. Not understanding where this information coming from. Shout out to you, Yukanan, P. Yasharah. Shalom, shalom. I am John. Shalom to you. He says it here. He hears a spirit, a supernatural being called him, Iwas, while in Egypt. They taught him to what? Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. That clearly goes against the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. He said, the Most High says, those that observe to do and keep all of the law. That he sent through his prophet Moshe, through his prophet Moses, to his people. He says, then I will bless you. Right? But this guy here says, do what thy shall be the whole of the law. But do what thy will shall be the whole of the law. Just do what you do. Do what you will. Do whatever you feel like doing. Right? The Bible talks about that men will be lovers of themselves in the last days. Right? Shout out to you, Mongo Slave. Glad to have you in the building, family. Right? And he says, which became the core principle in his religion and philosophy called Thelema. Now, if you remember when on our teaching yesterday, this is one of the teachings that Billy Carson bases his information on, and even some others that we hear sayings comes out of this understanding that this philosophy that Aleister Crowley created, this Thelema. One of the sayings that he has as well, another saying that he has is delivering wisdom or bringing wisdom from the darkest minds of the light. It's Aleister Crowley rhetoric. Aleister Crowley rhetoric. Right? Now, Crowley went on to write 6 books pertaining to magic and became obsessed with ceremony and Egyptian magic. And just like other Satanists and Luciferians, or those with such sympathies, he had a fascination with Thoth. Right? And so when you see a lot of this stuff, especially, we've seen a lot of these themes floating around on the House of Crimes, or the HOK. Shout out to my brother Incognito. We've seen a lot of that. It's Aleister Crowley talk. Right? But you see, they have this fascination with Egyptian magic, demonic forces, or supernatural beings that tell them, do what thou shalt be the whole of the law. In other words, let the law be unto whatever pleases you. Whatever pleases you. Let that be the law you live by. Right? Let's continue. It says, in fact, he wrote a book called The Book of Thoth, which contains the magic of Thoth in ancient Egypt. It also outlines the philosophy of his Thoth tarot card deck that he created for divination. One technique of magic Crowley strongly recommended was banishing. Banishing is a technique used by magicians to rid the space of forces that might interfere with the magic that is being performed. As Crowley says in his book, Magic, Book 4, Chapter 13, he says, in the banishing ritual of the pentagram, we not only command the demons to depart, but invoke the archangels and their hosts to act as guardians of the circle during our preoccupation with the ceremony proper. It is usually sufficient to perform a general banishing and to rely upon the aid of the guardians invoked. The banishing ritual of the pentagram is the best to use. Now, how demonic is that? Absolutely, I am, John. It's levels to this, man. It's levels to this. We're going to get even deeper. We're going to get even deeper. The lesser balancing ritual of the pentagram is a magic ritual used by the Hermetic order, right? We're going to be talking about that, the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn, right? Which is an occultic sect based on the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus or Thoth, right? And if you know anything about Freemasonry, all of their ritual practices and worship is built on Hermes Trismegistus or Thoth, and this is what Billy Carson constantly pushes. I believe he is a high wizard in this occultic realm, dealing with this Thoth magic in this Hermetic order, worshiping this demon, this pagan demon of the underworld Thoth. And this is what he pushes, and this is why he goes so hard to convince people that the Bible is really the culprit here, that the word of the Most High is really the culprit here. That's the evil. You understand what I'm saying? So we got to understand really what's being said to us here. Watch this. This ritual involves getting rid of spirits or impure forms of the elements from the magician circles by tracing pentagrams in the air with a dagger, and by the power of certain divine names, followed by an invocation of spiritual forces to guide the pentagram. How demonic and foolish is that? And when I use the term demonic, I am talking about spiritual forces that control the consciousness of men, to keep them at a lower state of nefesh, to keep them at a lower state so that they descend only, because that's where the Egyptian pantheon dwells. It dwells in the descendant place. Asar operates from the realm of the dead. Thoth reparates from the realm of the dead. Amenti is the realm of the dead. All of these things deal with the realm of the dead. They are death worshipers. Right? And we don't have to have a supernatural spiritual eye to see that anything that's below us, anything beneath our feet, right, is not of the Most High. Just on your rhetoric alone, you're going in the wrong direction. It is a descendant state, a state of consciousness that they're dragging you to. Why? Why? Because they cannot reach the high level of consciousness. They cannot reach the power that you will when you connect your higher consciousness, your neshama, to the Ruach Elohim. And you combine that, and the Most High is able to connect with you. You're able to connect to the God-like conscious. That is what they do not want you to do. Why? Because it is in the God-like consciousness that you begin to understand that you keeping the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High is what's going to get you to a place of abundance. Allowing the Most High Yah to order and guide your step. That's what's going to walk you into your place of impossibility by your faith, operating in the realm of impossibility. But they want to do everything they can to keep you from that understanding. Why? Because once they do that, now you are trapped in the matrix. Once they lull you to sleep with these lullabies, these lies, once they lull you to sleep with this foolishness, then you are trapped in the matrix. They don't want you to awaken from the matrix in which they've created that keeps you in a perpetual state of suspended animation in your mind. You're not going anywhere. You think you're moving, but your wheels are just spinning. You ever been in your place in your life where you just felt like you was doing a whole lot? You're tired, but you don't see any progress. Nothing's moving forward. Seems like no matter what you do, you can't move forward. This is the moment in the time when you're in that space that you are supposed to submit your consciousness, your will, submit your consciousness to the will of the Father, because it is He who will guide you, right? It is He that will lead you and to guide you into all truth. So we have to be very careful about what we allow to come into our hearts and our minds. The Most High says, I will write my laws. I will write my laws, my word, my laws, statutes, and commandments. I will write them on the tables of your heart. What is that? In your mind. So we have to be very careful about how we allow these things to affect us. Right? Watch this. Why were magical practitioners of the teachings of Hermes under the impression that magic was best done by drawing pictograms and invoking spirits to protect it, when this symbol has been historically linked to Satanism, and Thoth has been historically linked to Luciferian philosophy? Could it be that Thoth is in fact a demon, as the Satanic Bible outlines? The Satanic Bible says Thoth is one of their highest demons, highest ranking demons. He's called a king of the underworld. Thoth is. Right? When Yeshua says, he tells the Pharisees, he says, look, you are of your father, the devil. What was he talking about? Was he speaking biologically? No. But what was he talking about? Because they were Israelites. But what was he talking about? He was talking about their state of consciousness. Right? They had not been born again into a higher state of God-like consciousness. Right? So this was this battle for the conscious mind and thought, because that's what produces actions. Your thoughts. So the battle is in that. That's where the battlefield is, right? Let's go a little bit further, right? Human sacrifice. Watch this, people. I want y'all to really get this, right? Human sacrifice, according to legend, coming from channel materials, Thoth started a colony in ancient Kemet at the beginning of Egyptian civilization, after Atlantis sank, after the fall of Atlantis roughly 10,000 years ago, and was a high priest there. This is what Billy Carson espouses. This would mean that Thoth ruled over pre-dynastic and maybe even first dynasty Egypt, right at the start of their civilization. According to anthropologist Dr. Sasha Lesson, in 3450 BCE is when Thoth was a ruler of Egypt, right? The only problem with this is that Thoth, the god of religion and ritual, ruled at the exact same time when the Egyptians practiced human sacrifice, right? And this is from the book talking about the death pit. Right here, they got it right here. It's the bodies in position in the great death pit, right? And they show in the drawings right here, the ramp, the entrance of there. This is where human sacrifice was being had in ancient Egypt, right? So let's talk about this. Let's go a little bit further. According to an article published in National Geographic, human sacrifice is clearly demonstrated as existing during and before the first dynasty by retainers or human servants being buried near each pharaoh's tomb so that they could go on into the afterlife to continue to serve the pharaohs and royalty. And Thoth, as the god of religion, rituals, and the high priest of Egypt, would have been overseeing this religious practice if this legend is true. But we know they had retainer sacrifices in ancient Kemet. during that particular period of time. We know that for a fact, right? According to other legends, watch this, of Thoth, an interview with Zechariah Stitson, a very, very important person to this whole Anunnaki thing, right, that we were talking about. Interview with Zechariah Sitchin. Thoth brought civilization to the Mayans. You hear Billy Carson say this on numerous occasions, and appeared to them in the form of Quetzalcoatl, who was a feathered serpent that the Mayans made human sacrifices to. If anyone saw the last Wakanda movie, the people that they were fighting, and the mutant that they called the mutant, the guy was flying around, he had wings on his ankles or whatever, right? After eating this, you know, his mama ate a herb or something like that, and some old kind of crazy stuff, but it changed their DNA, right? And the Mayans, right? They called him Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl. This is the same thing, the same reference that they're talking about, right? This means that Thoth would have been inspiring and overseeing human sacrifices, leaving them under the impression that he required blood in order to bestow favor upon them. But then you got Billy Carson saying, look, your God in the Bible is evil. He has a bloodlust. But he worships Thoth, right? Who's clearly connected to blood rituals, retainer sacrifices, and human sacrifices. The method of sacrifices for Quetzalcoatl was to cut someone open while they were alive, pull out their heart, and offer it up. Human sacrifice. Human sacrifice. Right? So these are the things that we see. Let's continue. Thoth also apparently helped start the Sumerian culture and was known to them as I always say his name wrong. Ingizita, right? A serpent god of the underworld. Sir Leonard Woolley, an excavator of the famous ancient Mesopotamian city of Ur in Samaria. There, among hundreds of tombs, he found 16 elaborate royal tombs, all containing human sacrificial victims that were stacked on top of each other, with numbers as high as over 70 human skeletons in a single tomb, right? So we know that they were practicing, right, under Thoth, these human sacrifices. These tombs were known as the Great Death Pits, right? And this is what you see here. These great death pits, right? And were sometimes filled completely with dead human bodies, as you can see from Woolley's archaeological diagram of the pit on the right. That's what we were looking at here. What a strange coincidence, taking all things into consideration, that this god of religion and ritual, who lives in the fire of the earth, known to be a demon by Satanists, helped establish 3 ancient cultures. And this is what Billy Carson will tell you, that Thoth is responsible for these ancient cultures that had to be reestablished after the Great Flood. That he's responsible for this. And in each one of these cultures, in ancient Kemet, right, the Mayan culture, and in the Sumerian culture, what do we see? As Thoth is the one Billy Carson claims being responsible for elevating the humanity of man after the Great Flood. Human sacrifice. In every one of those cultures, human sacrifices recorded. Sometimes for the first time they're recorded. I don't believe that Thoth is anything more than a demon in heavenly places. That's Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. Or the lower heavens in Satan's air kingdom, right? He's the ruler of the world, of the earth, of the air, right? Ephesians 2 and 2. He is no God, but he is an unembodied spirit doing his work with the lower heavenlies, lower states of consciousness, right? Let's deal with Hermes, Thoth, Freemasonry, Billy Carson. Let me go to this link. If you guys haven't already, please hit that like button.
And then they, especially in this community, oh, that person's got to be evil because they have a compass behind them, or you know what I mean. And it's like these preconceptions, I think, that all people that understand or know about Freemasonry are in some way trying to dominate and take over the planet. I studied this stuff myself without going to any lodges or any official invites to any secret meetings. But you can get these books on eBay and Amazon and learn I want to know, what are these people studying? What are they learning about? What are they being told? Because I want to know, and I want to know, what are these symbols and the structure, the sacred geometry built into these structures and buildings, like all throughout Washington, D.C. and all around the world, throughout Rome and everywhere else. Freemasonry. I think that a lot of people hear the term Freemasonry or see someone that they may think they have a Freemasonry ring on, or a symbol or something that they see in their background. And then they, especially in this community, oh, that person's got to be evil because they have a compass behind them, or you know what I mean. And it's like these preconceptions, I think, that all people that understand or know about Freemasonry are in some way trying to dominate and take over the planet. I studied this stuff myself without going to any lodges or any official invites to any secret meetings. But you can get these books on eBay and Amazon and learn I want to know, what are these people studying? What are they learning about? What are they being told? Because I want to know, and I want to know, what are these symbols and the structure, the sacred geometry built into these structures and buildings, like all throughout Washington, D.C. and all around the world throughout.
Right. And so we hear him espousing this interest, or this search for knowledge of Freemasonry, right? And so there's an issue with that, because it's all connected. Freemasonry is built on Thoth and Hermes Trismegistus and the magic, the 33rd degrees, and all of these different things that we see. But they come and they take this and they take it and they try to persecute those, right, with this narcissistic understanding of this spiritual narcissism that Billy Carson holds, that the people who believe in the God of the Bible are somehow confounded, are of lesser knowledge, lesser states of consciousness. But he's chasing Freemasonry. So let's look at it, right? And what is it? What is it? There it is, right there. We're going to talk about Hermes Trismegistus, right? So Hermes Trismegistus is a combination of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. And his name that is sometimes used interchangeable with Thoth. Because of this, the two gods were worshipped as one in what had been the temple of Thoth in Kimnu, right, or Kemet, which the Greeks call Hermopolis, right? That's Yeats, Giordano Bruno Yeats, and the Hermetic Tradition, pages 2 through 3. This is going to get interesting. Let's continue. Hermes Trismegistus. During the Renaissance, it was accepted that Hermes Trismegistus was a contemporary of Moses. Now, this was during the time of the Renaissance, right? However, after Isaac Kassenbaum's demonstration in 1614 that the Hermetic writings must post-date means come after the event of Christianity or the beginning of Christianity, the whole of Renaissance Hermeticism collapsed. As to their actual authorship, they were certainly not written in remotest antiquity by an all-wise Egyptian priest, as the Renaissance believed, but by various unknown authors. All of this stuff about Thoth and Hermes Trismegistus and how all of this stuff came about, and was it 36,000 years old, and all of these ancient tablets like we were reading about, the emerald tablets and different things of that nature. Isaac Kassenbaum demonstrated that they were certainly not written in the remotest antiquity by an all-wise Egyptian priest, quote-unquote Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus. And the Renaissance, and as the Renaissance believed, by various unknown authors, all probably Greeks. And they contain popular Greek philosophy of the period with a mixture of Platonism and Stoicism combined with some Jewish and probably some Persian influences. So all of this stuff that these guys are espousing from Thoth and Hermes Trismegistus and the sayings of the great Egyptian priest and all of that, Madame Blavatsky and Billy Carson and Aleister Crowley, all of this stuff is just a gumbo of garbage. It's all made up. It's all made up. I tell people often that when there's a claim made that something was stolen, that the Bible copied something or stole it from the Bible, if you really study and look at the dates when these things actually began to be said or espoused, this is well after even a lot of the New Testament works were written. Well afterwards. And so the confusion comes in at is that they'll mention an ancient story, they'll mention an old story. They'll talk about Amun-Ra, right? Or they'll talk about Amun, or they'll talk about Asar, or Osiris, or Hermes, or Isis. They'll talk about these pagan deities, Nut, Geb. They'll talk about these pagan deities that we know were mentioned aforetime way before the advent of Christianity or even Israelites themselves. As a people, we know those things to be accurate, but what they do is they take modern ideologies and modern scripts and connect them with ancient names. And then people, as they began to read these texts, they'll say, look, this Asar was the God of life. He was the rising and dying savior. Asar is never said to have saved anyone in his entire life. They talk about Horus, right? Horus was born on December 25th. The biblical text and narrative never ever makes the claim that Yeshua or Yahushua was born on December 25th during the winter solstice. But it does, in some historical accounts, say that Tammuz, the son of Semiramis, right, a Mesopotamian, ancient Near Eastern folklore, mentions Tammuz being born around the time of the winter solstice. They'll tell you later on in history that those dates were combined. The worship, the birth of Yeshua and the December 25th. Those things were combined later on in time, well after Yeshua was on the scene. We're talking about the historicity of Yahushua and Yeshua, right? So these things are often construed to mean that in a way where it confuses the people. When you look at the 16 dying, rising saviors, right? I had a debate with Chris Harris on that, and I clearly came out and showed in the debate, well, all of those 16 dying and rising saviors, none of them have the same exact story. right? None of them have an actual virgin birth that they talk about, even though I don't believe in a virgin birth as per se as many people teach it, but the virgin birth that's in the scripture, right? There's a significant difference in that understanding. So when people try to make these correlations, about Christ or Yahushua and these different texts, they're off. There's no way they can prove any of it, right? So, we have to look at these things and understand clearly at times and understand exactly where we are. So we understand that these things were completely made up, right? Let's go to the next slide. Right? And here's where we begin to get into Freemasonry. And I just added this in this morning from my other slide because I wanted to get into dealing with Freemasonry, right? And dealing with its connection to ancient Kemet, right? It says the snake and the Egyptians, right? It says, we, of course, know also of the many struggles between Seth and Osiris, the Lord and the judge of the dead, the father of Horus and Set, the brother of Osiris, tried to kill Horus, take the world for themselves. So that the story goes that on the attempt to take Osiris' life, a god named Hathor, right, transformed itself into a poisonous state called Ajep or Apep and killed the would-be assassins. The snake also guarded the wheat fields where the spirit of Horus was said to live. This brought the sheaf of wheat to be regarded as the symbol of reliving or rebirth. This symbol is also used in our second degree. This is what the Freemasons use. And this is what I'm quoting from. I'm quoting from the Freemasonry text. This is what they believe and why they believe these things and use certain symbols, right? We heard Billy Carson talk about what does the symbols mean? Well, they get it from this mythos, this mythology, this stuff that's made up, right? In another, we learned that god Isis was transformed into a fire-spewing cobra called Uraeus in Greek, and symbolized the bearer of this symbol that he was in possession of the secrets of the material world. The pharaohs therefore wore the symbol of Uraeus on their head as a symbol of sovereignty or royalty. This snake worn on the head also indicated the possessions of the so-called third eye, from which nothing could be hidden in this or in the next world. We see clearly the connection between ancient Kemetic paganism and mythology and Freemasonry and Thoth. All of these things that we hear this guy Billy Carson teaching, and I'm telling people, all you're hearing what he's calling forbidden knowledge. He's calling himself forbidden knowledge. All he's doing is remixing and espousing same old rhetoric of the Freemasons, Aleister Crowley, Madame Blavatsky. He has a gumbo of things that he's trying to serve you and tell, and all the while he's telling you you should burn the Bible. There's some good things in there, but you got to understand that the gods in that Bible are really the true wicked gods. Right? Freemasons re-expose the serpent priesthood. Other examples of the snake. The same interpretation is made by practitioners of yoga who claim that one's inner strength is like a coiled up snake, which is deep within oneself. By practicing yoga, the snake will extend itself through the several so-called chakras and eventually reach the head and form the third eye. Foolishness. Foolishness. People say, well, how do you know? How can you say it's foolishness? It's just talking about different levels of enlightenment. No, what it's telling you is that you are to remain and you're to worship. Listen, if the highest deity that you're being told to worship is the serpent, the Leviathan, the snake, the python, which in its essence is always at the lowest form, always as cunning and as subtle as it is, it's always at its lowest form, always upon its belly. What are you looking to ascend to? You have to get down to its level below it in order to even look up to the serpent. Shalak it. So you have to abase yourself even lower than that serpentine consciousness itself. But they will have you believe that that lower level of consciousness is where you should descend to. And in that descension, and then you will be enlightened. That's not how this thing works. It's not how this thing works. I'll get into it. I'll get into it. A Freemason and Mason. One was really an occupation, right? Or a carpenter. He was more of a carpenter, not a mason. Specifically says he was a carpenter. Masons really did with bricklaying and brickwork, sediment, that type of thing. But it says Christ was a carpenter, right? Yahweh was a carpenter, a master builder, right? Of hands, of his hands, and he actually worked. They're talking about certain things that had to do with this Babylonian structure, right? Which is where we see really Freemasonry develop from, this Babylonian type of ideology. But we're going to get a little bit further into that. I want to show you guys some other things too. All right. Let's see. The snake as duality. We can conclude from these examples that the snake has positive and negative images. In positive stories, it creates the world. In others, it's causing flood, devastation, even death. The snake, therefore, is usually portrayed as a duality. That's just another specific term for upper and lower conscious, a higher and lower consciousness. In the Book of the Dead, we learned that the snakes were the first to acclaim Ra, which, very interestingly enough, Billy Carson claims that Ra is the evil god. He's actually the wicked god. But yet he espoused to this duality, the Book of the Dead, right? Which this knowledge he believes came from Thoth. We learned that the snakes were the first to acclaim Ra, which he appears from the surface of the waters, and hence snakes were referred to as the lowest strata of life, the lowest point of consciousness. They're telling you exactly what they believe in and exactly where they want you to go, right? And in some colloquial terms, if you say El was, I believe at times was a misnomer, but I do believe that the Canaanite deity of El was the actual Kemetic deity Ta, but it was not the El of Israelites. Israelites, when they began to use the term El, it just became a cognate in their language, in their understanding, and they used it as a misnomer, simply as we use the word God today, right? We use the word God. They use the word El. We use the word God. They use the word El, right? So they wasn't necessarily referring to the Canaanite deity El or Ta or Ptah, right? So those are the things that we have to be very careful of. And I'm just talking to those in the chat. It says, therefore, who is considered to be at the very top of the strata of life? Wearing a snake, or as in our aprons, continually reminds us of where we came from and what we are in search of. This comes directly from the minds and the thoughts of Freemasonry. I wanted to show something else. He's also referred to here as the green snake. I wanted to show you guys something here. Here we go. The Ouroboros, the snake as the Ouroboros, right? The snake we have seen plays an important role in symbolism, and I hope to have explained a little more that why the snake is chosen as our hook on our aprons, and this is coming directly from a Mason. In the higher degrees of Masonry, we find the snake extensively used. The 25th degree, for example, is the degree of the Knights of the Brazen Serpent, in which the symbols I have covered can be seen, including Ouroboros, right? And you see here, this is the serpent here. And what you'll notice is it makes a complete circle. Why? Because the head of a snake swallows its tail, and it makes a complete circle. We'll see that. I wanted to get to some others. I wanted to get to that right here. Right, the papyrus of Dama Haru, right, in ancient Egypt in the 21st dynasty, right? The zodiac as a tail-eating snake, the Ouroboros. That's what this is right here. The papyrus of Dama Haru, right, symbolizes the eternity of time, right? That's that loop there, time, eternity of time. The boundary of the universe below it, the double lion, Ruti, or yesterday and tomorrow, right? It's talking about time, yesterday and tomorrow. The agency of resurrection supporting the newborn sun god, right? Which is the eye of Ra here, right? Being born. So these are the symbols that are often used, and you might see these at times, especially when you see a lot of women's jewelry like that, right? That snake, and then the head of the snake swallows its tail, right? This is all this Freemason symbolism. Here's a better look at it, right? A depiction of it. And here's what I wanted to get to. The double triangle of Solomon, represented by two ancients of Kabbalah, right? The macros forest and the micro forest, the god of light, the greater light and the lesser light, the god of reflections from Eliphaz Levi's Transcendental Magic 1896. And you'll see where they've clearly acculturated these things. Now you see there's the cross there, right? You see this is not a 6-point star, but this is two intercepting pyramids, right? As above, so below, right? This is all their symbolism, right? And here you have what? This little demonic face. I don't know if you can see it. But it represents the head of Mendes at times, or demonic entity. Here you see the horns there, and you see how the beard of this deity connects to 3. And how do we know that this is a depiction, really a depiction of Hermes Trismegistus, whom they believe was reincarnated as Solomon? How do we know? Because he has the 3, the 1, 2, 3, and that's what Trismegistus means, the Lord, the Lord, the Lord, right? So his symbol is 3, or 1, 2, 3, and then you see the same thing, his reflection here, right? As above, so below. You see his reflection here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 6-point star. That's your other 6. And then you have all of these sayings here. I think you're supposed to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is all one saying here. The 6 sayings, the 6-point star, the 6 points of the star. This region here, the 6 sayings. Like all of this here is symbolic of this. Here you see the same thing here among the Aztecs representation of Quetzalcoatl, right? We have the serpent swallowing its tail, Why do we see this here? We saw it here. We see it here. Ancient Kemet. We see it here. We see it here among the Greeks. They called it Ouroboros. We see it here, the same symbol, the serpent swallowing its tail. Why do we see that among the Aztecs? Representation of Quetzalcoatl. I heard somebody in the chat. I saw somebody in the chat. I think they actually wanted to challenge that notion. But are we saying this is coincidence? Incognito, I would agree with you. You see a lot of Israelites wearing it, and they shouldn't at all. They just don't have an understanding of it. They don't have an understanding of it. Right? So what is it why do we see this same symbolism here? Why do we see the same symbolism here? What's the connection? Look what we have here. This is from the ancient Greco-Byzantine alchemical test relating to the manufacture of gold. This is how they believe they could turn gold. And so this is the symbol that they use for it. The serpent swallowing its tail. That's from the Greco-Byzantine empire. Why do we see that here? We see the same image among the Aztecs, Quetzalcoatl, the same image. We see the same image among the Greeks. We see the same image among the ancient Kemet, 21st dynastic period of Kemet. The same image, the serpent swallowing its tail. Y'all want to tell me it's coincidence? It's not coincidence at all. It's not coincidence at all. So we have to be very careful about the things that we say and we see and understand what it is that we're looking at. These things are all connected, right? Look at what we have here. Aurora Boreas is an emblem for mortality. This is from George Withers, a collection of emblems, ancient and modern, 1635. Now look what you have here. The serpent swallowing its tail. You have the infant child here, right? This is Cupid or Eros, right? I believe that's what that's a depiction of. The baby inside the little child there is dealt with mortality. And then you see the death, the skull here, representations of the death, the lower level of consciousness, right? But you see it encapsulated here. Why do we see all these same symbols? Look at this. It's not coincidence. Not coincidence. Not coincidence. Not coincidence. These things are all connected. Let me show you a little bit more. Look at this. This is the jewel of the 25th degree in the Scottish Rite from Freemasonry. What do we see here? Same circle, intertwined by a snake. But mind you, look at the type of, this is a T. Look at this. And look, as we see, the Holy Roman Empire, these were their symbols. Look at the coiled snake. July 1998 issue of the Scottish Rite Journal states that the eagle was also a symbol of regeneration and rebirth. The wings of the eagle, wings on our feet. But another Masonic writer returned back to the symbolism of the snake as regeneration or reincarnation. That's what this is. Show you a little bit more. We see these all over the place, but this is Freemasonry as well. I'm gonna get into that another day. what I wanted to get to here. We see this here, right? People often talk. They often talk about who owns the Federal Reserve, right? We go into a lot of different things from Freemasonry dealing with the Federal Reserve, right? You got ASNSOM right here. They tell you that it spells out Mason, right? When you look at the 6-point symbolism, the first letters and the last letters and the 6 points, what these things connect to, that it connects to these letters, and these letters spell out Mason. So on the back of your dollar bill, that type of stuff. In 1789, Alexander Hamilton became the first Treasury Secretary of the United States. Hamilton was one of the many founding fathers who were Freemasons. He had close relationships with the Rothschilds family, which owns the Bank of England and leads the European Freemason movement. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Jay, Ethan Allen, Samuel Adams, Patrick Henry, John Brown, Roger Sherman were all Freemasons. The Temple of the Lodge, Michael Bagnet and Richard Lee, 1989, page 259. Right? You have a lot of these things that are connected here. Roger Livingston helped Sherman and Franklin write the Declaration of Independence. He gave George Washington his oath of office while he was Grand Master of the New York Grand Lodge of Freemasons. Washington himself was Grand Master of the Virginia Lodge of the General Officers in the Revolutionary War. 33, there that number again, were Masons. This was a highly symbolic, since 33rd degree Masons become illuminated. Illuminated how? They're talking about a form of enlightenment, another form of consciousness. What illumination were they talking about? Satanic worship, Luciferian ideology. This is a chart of most important Messianic symbols. Just to show you guys, I'm not going to go through them all, but just to see. It's chalked in symbolism. It says Masons pay homage to their satanic god, Jabulum or Jabun, in performing the ritual 3 times 3. Why is that significant? Performing the ritual 3 times 3. That is the meaning and the definition virtually of Trismegistus, which is equated to Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, Thoth, 3 times 3, Trismegistus, the Lord, the Lord, the Lord, is basically what it comes out to. But they worship the satanic god called Jabulon in performing the ritual 3 times 3, right? Or gives us that what? 3 times 3 is 9. 9 is that number, the ninth. That's that number again, right? The 9 gates of hell, right? The 9 is the number of Thoth, which is the number of the ruler of the netherworld, of the underworld, of the world of the kingdom of the dead. These are things people don't really understand. In the Royal Arch of 7th Degree, page 225 from Duncan's Masonic Ritual and Monitor, 3rd edition. The second sign of the super excellent Master Mason stimulates gouging out of the eyes of a traitor to Freemasonry. Let me go back. I want to show you guys something. Let me go back real quick. I want to go through this really quickly. Let's just go back a few ticks. Because I really want people to really get this. really want my people to get it. Hold on a second. Something that I found very interesting. I think this is it.
And Lil meant Lord, wind. He was sometimes called Lord of the air.
Yeah, this is the one. That's it.
He was also called Satan, the Lord of Eden. Sound familiar, guys? Sound familiar? In the Bible, he's known as Yahweh. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? His son is named Marduk, who's also in the Bible. Look it up. Marduk. Who's Marduk? His other name is Amun-Ra. And he's the one who said, when you say amen, you say, anytime you give thanks, you say amen. You give thanks to me. So that's where amen actually originates. It originates from Enlil's and Eneki's bloodline. And you're saying thank you to these Anunnaki every time you say amen. That's a whole nother podcast though. But anyway.
By Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson.
And those are the things that are contained in this book. I wanted to look at something else too. One more thing. We wanted to deal with. Something else I wanted to deal with. What else? Here it is. Is this it? I'll just say right here. It says right here, I wanted to read something interesting, right? It said, according to the second Emerald Tablet or Emerald Table, all right, which Billy Carson really bases a lot of his rhetoric on. This is his Bible, right? Their story bears a striking similarity to the fallen angels as described in the book and the Bible and the book of Enoch. For in a past time, lost in the space-time, the children of light look down on the world. Now, what they're espousing is that they are, aliens, right? These aliens who come from outer space, right? They come from outer space, and they come to not just, and these are not super gods, right? But these are just like flesh and blood men like you and I. And I mentioned this before, that have this super technology, right, to travel intergalactically, right? But somehow they lost the ability to do so. They weren't able to keep it up, right? They ran out of the process, the goal. I think it was gold that they needed in order to stay alive, right? Or for their planet to survive, right? All the gold that still remains on the earth today, they ran out of the power to harvest it. Like, this is like a lot of this stuff that this guy Carson espouses, as we've shown and seen clearly, is just complete and utter witchcraft. There's no basis to it. I would be very careful of sending this guy anything as far as money and donations and different things like that, because a lot of it simply is to keep you bound. It's to keep you bound. And so we have to be very careful of people like this who present themselves in our community, even when we hear this type of information in the circles that we find ourselves in, discussing information, having debates on these platforms, not really understanding the things of the Most High. And so, it's just something that we have to really, really, really be careful of. I want to go through some of these comments. There's a lot of them really briefly. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Yeah, shalom to you, Brother Marquise the Cushite. Definitely, Billy Carson is a pseudo, absolutely. And it's the pseudo-intellectual, spiritual narcissism, that we're talking about here. Very careful. It says he be lying, then he would tell a little truth, then he'll lie, then tell some. Absolutely. Yes. Freemasonry is dead. It's dead. So these guys have found a way, and I think what he's done is Billy Carson has found a way to try to repackage it. And calls it forbidden, and he actually calls himself forbidden knowledge. He's Billy Carson, aka forbidden knowledge. All right. My good brother here, Morning Star, shalom. He said Freemasons are directly connected to Antichrist. Absolutely agreed. Shalakia. Agree. And this is why they push so hard against the scripture. Yeah, I don't know if that was a request, but yeah, definitely shoot me an email. Definitely shoot me an email. We'll set up a time. We'll set something up. Definitely have a discussion. On some of these topics. Feel free. Here's the email. If you have any questions or concerns, all right? Definitely come on, and we'll do that. I agree 100%. This is one thing that I teach. Many don't teach that, but I teach Esau is among every nation. I don't care what ethnicity you are. He is among every nation. Agreed. Among every nation. Psalms 83 pretty much tells us this. Absolutely, they did that study. I think a young girl did that study showing all of the presidents, maybe except for one. I think except for Trump, but all of the presidents are connected through family lineage. Absolutely. And maybe we'll get into, I think I'll do that. I'll start on that. I've already have something, but I'll just need to add some other information to it and pray on it. But definitely we're going to talk about the bloodline of Cain. And what we actually know about Cain. The bloodline of Cain. Right? And really deal with that. So before we close and get out of here, I want to share some things with you, family. Let me go in here really quick. As you can see on the screen, these are some things up and coming teachers we're going to be having coming up soon. So please hit your notifications, like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said, y'all see already, it's a lot of information that goes forth in these chats, in the chats here. So we're going to really be getting it in. sharing information and really going deeper into understanding these things. We're going to be talking about spiritual alchemy, the crucifixion and the consciousness. I'm really excited about bringing this lesson out, bringing this to the people. The crucifixion and the consciousness, dying to self, resurrecting glorified. Deuteronomy 21, Romans 12, Ephesians 4 is going to be our foundational scriptures on this. I'm going to be putting out notifications on this as well, so you guys will be able to hit those notifications. So I just wanted to share with you guys what we're going to be what we're going to have coming up in the next week or so. We're going to be teaching on the crucifixion and the consciousness, dying to self, resurrecting glorified. It's going to be a powerful lesson. We're going to get into that. Also, we're going to be bringing back our brother, Prince of Yahweh, KOT, dealing on the historicity of Jesus or Yeshua. Friday Night Live, our next Friday Night Live, is going to be dealing with a topic. Did Yeshua, did Yahweh, did Jesus lie? Did he lie? Did he lie about the things that he told to the disciples? Did he lie about the things that he said were to come? Did he lie about the things that he called or claimed to prophesy about? Did he lie? We're going to be dealing with those things, specifically addressing the brother. I think the brother Chris Harris on HOK did a show saying how Jesus told a lie and how he was lying. So we're going to address that directly. We're going to address that directly. Did Jesus lie? Dealing with the historicity of Jesus. And while we're saying the historicity of Jesus, that's an actual study on the actual events that took place during the actual life and time of Yahweh, Yeshua, Jesus the Christ. So we're going to be dealing with that on our Friday Night Live. Look for the notification if you haven't. If you're interested in sharing in this topic, hit the like button, or share and subscribe to this channel. And we're going to be dealing with that information coming up. Not this Friday, but I believe next Friday we're going to be doing that. But I'll be putting notifications out, so you guys should be looking for that. Did Jesus lie? Right? We're going to be dealing with that as well. Also, we're going to be dealing with coming up. Let me guys show you something. One more thing. I didn't think I did the thing for it yet, but I'm going to show you guys one more thing. It's a very interesting topic we're going to get into. Let me share my screen. These are the things that we have coming up for you guys here in the Torah movement. We're going to be dealing with this topic right here coming up within the next week or so. We're going to be dealing with the invisible institution. The invisible institution. And if anybody knows what this symbol is, it is the Sankofa symbol, right? Directly from the West African culture. And we're going to be talking about the invisible institution. And we're going to be talking about the understanding of how the Sankofa understanding for the West African belief system correlates with the scripture. And we're going to be breaking down the understanding of the Sankofa symbol, right? You have the Sankofa bird there, and that little round dot there you see at its beak is an egg on its back, right? And so we're going to be breaking all of that symbolism down. We're going to be talking about the consciousness that deals with that, how it correlates in the scriptures, and also the material culture we see of those in West Africa who did have Hebraic practices, Hebrewism practices, and how we find those things in the Americas, right? People say Israelites didn't come over in the slave ships, because if we did, we'll be able to find the material culture. Well, we're going to talk about some of those material cultures that we believe line up with the Bible, right? Clearly things that they connect back to the Bible, right? that material culture from West Africa evident in the Americas via the transatlantic slave trade. We're going to be talking about that within the next coming weeks. Within the next coming week, I just was talking to my brother Orthodox Moore. Shout out to Orthodox Moore in preparing this, picking his brain for some of the information, putting some of these pieces together as we build on this particular topic. And I wanted to do that to show people, yeah, that guy should have been, yeah, that guy, yeah, the MVP guy, yeah, that guy, right? He made the claim on saying that Jesus lied, but we're going to deal with that. Again, we're going to be dealing with this. I'm excited to teach this particular lesson. I'm excited to teach every lesson that the Most High gives me, but I'm excited to teach this lesson and dealing with the material culture of West African Hebraisms in the Americas. And people are going to want to understand how I'm making a connection with the Sankofa bird and the Sankofa symbol, right? From the West African culture, right? How we're going to be making that connection to scriptures. You say it can't be done. I dare you to tune in. I challenge you to tune in. That's what I'm going to be sharing. That's it for today, family. Peace and blessings to y'all, man. I love you guys, man. I pray the Most High blessings around your families, that He keeps His arms of protection around you as you go to and fro to your various destinations. May He keep your heart, your mind, your souls in good health. May He keep you in perfect peace as you keep your mind stayed on Him. Keep ascending, family. Keep ascending. And shalom.